Some seasons don't ask politely. They don't wait until you feel ready. They don't adjust to your emotional capacity. They demand. Not all at once, but consistently. This season asks more than words can explain. It asked for endurance. When you were already tired, it asked for restraint. When you wanted relief, it asked for consistency. When motivation was unreliable, and it didn't pause to check how you were holding up. You had to respond anyway. Not dramatically, not loudly, just steadily, day after day. This season didn't look hard from the outside, but it required more from the inside than you ever expected. It didn't come with a single break-in moment. It came with repetition, with responsibility that didn't let up, with pressure that didn't announce itself. And you carried it. Not because you felt strong, but because leaving would have cost something deeper. This season asked for emotional discipline, for learning how to regulate your reactions, for choosing your words carefully. When emotions were heavy, you learned how to pause, how to breathe, how to continue without spilling everything outward. That kind of strength doesn't draw attention, but it forms something solid. There is a difference between being overwhelmed and being shaped under pressure. Overwhelmed things collapse. Shaped things gain structure. You gain structure. You learned how to function while tired, how to keep showing up. Even when the internal reward was minimal, that didn't happen by accident. Psalms 73-26 says, "My flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart." Scripture doesn't deny exhaustion. It names it honestly. Your flesh felt the strain. Your heart felt stretched. But strength didn't disappear. It was supplied. Not in loud breakthroughs, not in emotional highs, but in steadiness. Enough clarity for the next decision. Enough patience for the next conversation. Enough resolve for another day. This season asked you to keep going without clarity. Waiting is continuing forward without clarity. And you did that. You didn't rush outcomes. You didn't force answers. You stayed aligned. Even when certainty was missing. That takes strength. Some seasons test courage in a moment. Others test faith across time. This one tested consistency. Your ability to remain steady when no one was correcting you, when no one was applauding you, when no one would have noticed. If you quietly disengaged, but you didn't. You stayed engaged. You didn't abandon what mattered. You didn't let fatigue decide your character. You carried responsibility without turning it into resentment. That is not weakness. That is maturity. Psalm 55:22 says, "Cast your burden on the Lord, and He will sustain you." Sustain doesn't mean remove everything immediately. It means support you from underneath. It means you remain upright while the weight still exists. That's what happened. You were sustained. You may not have felt lifted, but you were held together. Held when days felt repetitive. Held when effort felt unnoticed. Held when progress felt slow. This season asked you to manage pressure quietly, to carry tension without letting it spill into every relationship, to hold responsibility without letting it define your worth. That kind of self-control doesn't come from comfort. It is formed under demand. Psalm 121:3 says, "He will not let your foot slip." It doesn't say, "The road will be smooth." It says, "You will not fall." The ground felt uncertain, the future unclear, but you didn't lose your footing. You adjusted your pace. You recalibrated expectations. You learned how to last. This season asked you to become more discerning. You stopped reacting to everything. You became selective with your energy, not because you stopped caring, but because you learned what mattered. You learned that endurance is not about pushing harder every day. It is about pacing yourself so you don't lose alignment. That shift protected you. Isaiah 40:31 says, "Those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength." Waiting is not inactivity. It is restraint. Restraint required you to become aware of yourself in new ways. You had to notice how quickly fatigue could influence your tone, how pressure could shorten your patience, how unspoken expectations could weigh on your decisions. So you learned to slow down internally, not to escape responsibility, but to stay aligned while carrying it. You became intentional with your pauses, intentional with your words, intentional with what you allowed to occupy your mind. That level of awareness does not come from ease. It is shaped in seasons that demand more than you feel prepared to give. You learned that reacting might release tension, but responding would protect your integrity. So you chose response again and again. You learned how to remain calm without becoming detached, how to stay present without absorbing every weight around you. That balance is difficult, and you developed it quietly. You stopped measuring progress by visible results. You started measuring it by alignment, by whether your actions matched your values, by whether your choices reflected who you were becoming. That shift changed how you defined strength. Strength was no longer about intensity. It became about steadiness, about being reliable under pressure, about remaining consistent when enthusiasm faded. You learned how to endure routine without losing meaning, how to stay faithful in ordinary days. And that didn't feel significant, but required discipline all the same. Those days formed something durable in you, something that doesn't collapse easily. You may not have noticed the change while it was happening, but it is evident now. You carry yourself differently. You respond differently. You remain grounded where you once felt unsettled. That growth did not come from words. It came from carrying what this season asked of you, with restraint, awareness, and faithfulness. It is choosing not to rush decisions, not to let fear dictate direction. That kind of waiting requires strength. And strength was renewing quietly inside you. You may not feel transformed overnight, but you are steadier now, less reactive, more grounded. This season asked you to guard your inner life. Proverbs 4:23 says, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. And you did. You didn't let disappointment harden you. You didn't let delay make you reckless. You stayed anchored. That anchoring was costly. It required discipline. It required choosing restraint over emotional release. But it protected your integrity. This season asked you to grow without recognition, to mature without applause, to remain faithful without constant reassurance. That kind of growth doesn't feel dramatic, but it lasts. Psalm 66:10 says, for you, O God, have tested us. You have refined us like silver. Refining doesn't destroy what matters. It removes what cannot last. Silver survives the heat. It becomes clearer because of it. You're clearer now. Clearer about your limits. Clearer about your priorities. Clearer about what truly sustains you. This season asks more than words can explain. It asked for unseen faithfulness, for quiet obedience, for the kind of strength that doesn't announce itself. Jesus spoke directly to people carrying this kind of weight. In Matthew 11:28, he said, come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. He didn't call those who escaped responsibility. He called those who carried it. Rest here is not an exit. It is restoration while life continues. Jesus doesn't dismiss your tiredness. He understands it. He meets you inside the demand. This season didn't crush you. It stretched you. It shaped how you respond, how you decide, how you endure. You didn't come out louder. You came out deeper. You didn't become faster. You became steadier. That will matter in what comes next, because the next season will require stability, not speed. This one prepared you for that. You don't need to explain this season to everyone. You don't need to justify how much it required. God already knows. He saw the discipline. No one applauded. The restraint. No one noticed. The consistency. And that didn't feel heroic, but kept you standing. Nothing was wasted. This season asks more than words can explain, and you answered it with faithfulness. You are still here, not because it was easy, but because you learned how to carry what was asked of you without losing yourself. And that matters. If this message spoke to you, like the video, share it with someone who carried more than they ever said out loud. Subscribe for more devotionals like this. And if you feel led, leave a comment saying, God knows the cost. May His peace find you today.